in week 5, part 2 of R795. As I said, next week we'll hear from my good friend Michael Thomas, and we'll get to ask him anything, ask Mike anything, AMA. And then we'll hear, actually, in the second half, first half, we'll hear from Adam Mills about IRB. And then we'll hear from Ashot in the middle, or maybe at the end, about her study and what she's going to do. So anything that we need to address that concerns you about this class? As I mentioned to Kim yesterday, if you can't tell by now, I've front-loaded many things, guests coming into every week. So you should have a lot of advices from Meng Wan, from Zihong, from Rob, from Aaron, from all the people that we've brought in each and every week with their different advices, because they've been through all this, including Sune also gave some advice to you. And who did we have the first week in here? Does anyone remember?
Angela.
Angela, thank you. From Michigan. So yeah, we've had some great people. You've got to meet some good, really interesting, including Tom Reeves last week and others. So we'll continue. The momentum will continue. I want to, as I said, one objective is to make you maybe not a professional writer, but a better writer, at least a better planner for your writing, so that you too can benefit from a qualifying exam getting published maybe, or from something else potentially being published. So I'm going to go back to part 1. We started with parts 9 and 10 because they concern dissertations. So again, I front-loaded dissertation advice, qualifying exam advice, dissertation defense advice on the first 5 weeks of the course. And so we have one more, I think, session with a couple people later on. So in fact, I should take a quick look at that. So Florence Martin, that's going to be an interesting one, looking at systematic reviews on October 11th. We're currently doing a special journal issue about that. A week with Sune, a week of 7, October 4th. We need to have everyone sign up for a half-hour time slot with me for me to discuss your dissertation proposal. It doesn't have to be on October 4th. Preferably, it would be that day, Tuesday, October 4th. It could be the 5th, it could be the 3rd, it could be the 1st. But we'll start with the 4th, and we'll just create some times. And maybe, you can send me, why don't we do this? Everybody, why don't you send me your available times on the 4th, and then I'll try and figure out a schedule and copy Sunmi on it, because she'll work on that with me. So week of October 4th, we won't meet like this. Also the week of October 25th, we won't meet like this. Dr. John Hitchcock, who's listed in there, got moved up to October 18th because I'll be at AECT and I'll be interviewing famous people and posting it to Canvas for both classes. I'm going to interview the director of AECT, in fact, my good friend Ellen Wagner, and I'm going to interview Rick West about his book, a free book about educational technology trends, and maybe somebody else. So we're not meeting face-to-face on October 25th. We're not going to meet, I call it face-to-face. We're not going to meet in the synchronous Zoom, although you could attend the interviews I have with people in Las Vegas, but you probably don't want to. And we're not going to have a Zoom meeting like this. We'll have one-to-one Zoom meetings on October 4th, and then we'll have another one-to-one meeting on November 29th after Thanksgiving. So this is all, coming up here. And then so we have human subjects, Adam Mills, then we have one-to-one meetings, and then we have Florence Martin going to talk about her new book she's working on, Conducting Systematic Reviews, which should be great. And then Merve Bastigan, who I was just meeting with prior to this class, she's helped me build the calendar project. She's going to give 10 tips on writing a literature review and 10 tips on survey tools and 10 tips on research questions. So that will be a really good session as well. Again, nothing on October 25th. So again, we've kind of front-loaded things a bit in here. Let me go to my slides, see if I'm still able to do so, I have to share my screen. That would
Yeah,
help.
Ben has a question. I think his hand has been up.
Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, I did have a question. So it's kind of a broad question for the qualifying exams. For the article critique question, are the best resources to pull from Y520? That's what was the name of that course?
Also, for doing critiques, R711 is a course you all should have taken that by now. And that's a course that's really gearing you up to do a critique. But 521 or 520, which I used to teach, would be another possibility, definitely.
So those two courses are probably the best, would you say?
Yeah, I would say. 690 to some degree should be doing that as well. I've not taught 690, but that's teaching you research methods. And as part of that, I think they should be teaching you something about that. I'm not positive because, again, I haven't taught that particular course. Sunmei, what would you say? Sunmei? What are the best courses
I'm
for
sorry,
learning?
my internet is not stable. Can you repeat it? I can't hear anything.
So when you did critiques, what courses were the most beneficial in writing critique articles?
Oh, just hold on. I have to check it.
Go with that for now. We'll come back to that. I'm going to move on to the next part here. So let me go back to this. I'm not sure if you can see this. The G3 of writing tips, gentle guidelines, great stories, and gigantic scholarly gains. I did this with Meina Ju, who's my former student. Think of this as some suggestions, simplifications for jumpstarting your scholarly careers a bit. Now, I did a short little video introduction about this, and I'm going to see whether it's possible to, so I'm going to stop my sharing for a second. I'm going to reshare, optimize video and sound. Now, I don't know, hang on a second. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear the videos, the thing. Let me try. No. Hang on. Well, I'll tell you what. Instead of me, well, let me try one more time. It's really hard on Zoom to find the exact thing you want just when you want it. Oh, well, I will now officially give up. Okay, darn it. All right, so instead of doing that, I'm going to simplify things and say, when you get a chance, you can watch this video on your own at home and laugh your head off. I hope it's a funny one. Anyhow, after today's session, let me go back. Can you see my slides now or not? No, I don't hear. Okay,
well, sort of, not the top. It's cut off. There's like a bar.
Yeah, I've heard this before. Okay, let me see why that is. I'm not going to optimize anything. Now we should be okay. If you saw the little lines, I got to exactly hit this just right in this little box. Can you see the whole screen now, or is still got a black bar at the top?
You can see the whole screen, no black bar.
Yeah. So it had to do with optimizing sound and so forth. Anyways, I'm just going to skip that and just say these are the 10 parts of the workshop we did. I'll go through part 1 and 2 on stressors and publication process. I'm going to skip that as well. So a little Snoopy's cartoon like last time. Good luck with the second sentence. You know? Good luck with the first sentence. Good luck with the first word. Good, you know. So this is the publisher perish in academia. Before grad school, I'm going to research whatever I want. Grad student, I'm going to research whatever my professor wants. Assistant professor, I'm going to research whatever my tenure committee wants. Tenure professor, I'm going to research whatever my grant committee wants. Emeritus professor, I'm going to research whatever. Rest in peace. This is a notion that we follow prescriptions. We follow what other people want us to do. This notion of academic freedom is kind of a misnomer. I haven't really seen much of it, although sometimes I speak out. I'm sure Kim does too. And Shannon, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. But there's soaring expectations in higher education regarding publishing, regarding being productive. And in different disciplines, it's even worse, where we've gone from needing 3 articles published to get hired as an assistant professor, not tenure, just get hired. When I graduated, to today needing like 8 to 10 articles published before you can even get hired somewhere as an assistant professor and so forth. So the numbers are growing and mounting, which causes a lot of stress on new assistant professors, and why I came up with this workshop. Because you can see on the chart here, the number of book chapters has doubled. The number of total publications has nearly doubled to 14.7. Those are new assistant professors' publications and newly promoted associate professors. And you can see the growth of expectations in both, where the new assistant professor untenured was looking at having 6 to 8 articles published, and those with tenure having more than 14, 15 articles, that's kind of the norm, actually. And so the numbers keep mounting for people, and in disciplines like sociology, it's even worse. Newly promoted associate professors in certain fields in 2010 almost had twice as many peer-reviewed articles as their counterparts 2 decades before. So when I graduated a long time ago, it wasn't that bad. It was still, rigorous, but what it's like today, it's mounting. And so people, are starting to think about the well-being of their faculty and the human consequences of all this publish or perish kind of thing, and people running around with their heads chopped off constantly. And I'm going to skip this one. Well, okay, so in the chat window, why don't you tell me 2 or 3 pressures you have in terms of writing? And what is the pressure? Is it your parents? Is it society? Is it your salary could increase? What pressures do you have to write? Just curious. I will put one down here. Let's see. Oh, good one, Megan. Okay. And future jobs, all right. Okay, good one. Wanting to be a productive human being and make a contribution to your team or the human race, as Ben pointed out. You don't want to be in the movie Back to the Future and be called the slacker. As Ben's not a slacker. He had 7 research questions. He wants to do them all. Anyone else? Okay, let's go back to the previous question. Let me go soaring us back. So the other one was, what's one writing challenge in the past and how you overcame it? What's one writing challenge in the past and how you overcame it? I'm going to go back where I was and go to 1B here. Here's Snoopy. Dear contributor, thank you for submitting your paper. We regret that it does not suit our present needs. And he says, if it ever does, we're in trouble. Some of us feel like that on some of the manuscripts that we write. You know, we're not surprised it's been rejected because we maybe didn't put enough effort into it. We maybe hadn't done the research or thought about it. Maybe we knew the journal was rather difficult and beyond the topic scope in nature. So Rachel Torr, who's at Eastern Washington University, where I had the privilege of speaking a decade ago, she writes in the Chronicle of Higher Ed, she writes in Inside Higher Ed. And one of her articles that caught my attention is called The Habits of Highly Productive Writers. And she says in that article, you have time only to if you make it a priority, just like what Aaron said. You have to sock away time. You have to go to Brown County and rent out a cabin. You have to do something to get away. Productive writers don't allow themselves excuses. When they start to have feelings of self-doubt, I can't do this, it's too hard. They tell themselves to stop feeling sorry for themselves. And they realize there's no magic pill. There's no I have a magic wand in my closet, but it's out of juice. There's no magic bullet. There's no magic spell. You got to work at it, right? You know, and she goes on to say that a writer I know likes to say that over the years, he has trained his family not to expect him to show up at meals or in special events. You have the arrogance of, you have the risk of appearing arrogant when that happens. But you have to prioritize your writing time if you want to be a writer. Some of the things that you can do, Rachel said, here are 6 things. How to beat writer's block. Okay, I beat writer's block with starter text. She says, sometimes you can beat writer's block by having a workout, like I try and do every morning. Work up a sweat, think about the ideas, or take a quick trip to the grocery store and come back and get what you needed. Again, letting your ideas percolate in your brain as you're driving to the grocery store, as you're going maybe on a weekend camping trip or something. And then also you just have to keep at it. Just keep pushing yourself a little bit to write a paragraph here or there, a sentence here and there. Or as Anne Lamott clearly said, her clarion call was, write a shitty draft first and know it's going to be a shitty draft, and then know it will be better because you can always improve a shitty draft. She didn't say that shitty 3 times, so I was able to say it 4 times. So number 5, try the compost method. A pile of crap can lead to something worthwhile. It means just throwing it all in there, tossing all the ideas that you have down, and then going through it and finding the parts that are worth saving and keeping. And then sending yourself a reminder that even the best writers in the world had problems in publishing everything that they've done. Nothing's a piece of cake, right? So a couple of things from Manuel Whitaker, also in the Chronicle of Higher Education. This is 2 years ago, not quite 2 years ago. She has these 10 tips, okay? Look at number 10. Read more and edit as you go. I'm constantly reading new articles as I'm writing. I'm learning constantly. That's often I'm learning stuff because I have to write about it. Someone requested an article, had me think about a topic. Number 9 is very important. Establish a flexible schedule so that if you don't quite meet your goals, you can put them into tomorrow or the next day, and you don't get totally upset about yourself not meeting your first goal, your first schedule. You just change the schedule. So don't have a timeline, but don't look at it as some kind of gospel that you have to abide by. Number 8, write what motivates you that day. If you're not interested in writing about assessment of online learning, don't write about it that day. If you're not interested in doing your literature review of your dissertation, don't write your literature review of your dissertation. Work on the future directions, work on the limitations. Start with what at least gets you a little bit excited. Go there. Set time writing goals, not word goals. I kind of disagree with this one. This is an it depends. I have a mentor in the UK who once wrote 14,000 words, and he tried challenging me whether I could write 14,000 in a day. He wrote a book in 2 weeks that got published by a major publisher, and he has 30 books on dinosaurs being aquatic creatures, on the future of meat, on the intelligence of a single cell, on secret weapons in Nazi Germany. He was the head of Mensa in the UK, so pretty smart guy. We have writing word competitions. I try and compete with his number of words. I can't compete, but it's not always about time-related goals. Time could be the way you do it, 15 minutes of writing, 20 minutes of writing, an hour of writing. For me, I just float through life, enjoying life. And if it's an hour or 2 hours, so be it. The next day can be, I don't get overly stressed. I try not to get overly stressed about time. But I do like the number goals, the number of word goals. So I actually, this one I kind of disagree with. I have it, this is a challenge to myself, you know, a personal challenge. Number 6, expand the notion of when writing. When are you writing? So writing is a reprocessing effort. Things can happen in your brain that are not explicated on paper. That is right to me, that's writing. It doesn't have to be instantiated in a physical space. It can be going on here. It can also go in the notes that you have in your pockets. And I've got all these notes, and now I'm trying to get them out here. I've got all these notes in my pocket of my writing. I'm scribbling things all the time. That's writing. It doesn't have to be professionally polished on a piece of paper. It could be in a blog post. It could be in a Twitter feed. It could be in some kind of a recommendation letter you're writing, or a technical report. There's all sorts of writing that occurs, not just in napkins, but in virtual spaces as well. Number 5, have project-based writing schedule. So you're doing things project by project. So this is Kim's project 1. Here's Kim's project 2. Here's Kim's project 3 is number 1's in October. Number 2 starts in the end of October. Just approach it as a project manager. This is not a bad idea. Number 4, make a writing schedule and plan, but then make it flexible. So you need the project-related writing plan. You need to look at those plans, put the plan on your garage door for all your neighbors to see. As they come to the house and knock on the door, you could have, you know, Sunmay's writing plans. The raccoon outside will see your writing goals there. You could, no, I don't recommend putting the door outside. I put it on the door as I leave the house and move into the garage and get my car. It might be posted there. It could be on my refrigerator. It could be in my planner, which they often are. So I can open up and it'll tell you what paper I'm going to work on what day, and it will tell me what. So you can have all sorts of different things there. Set reasonable writing timelines. You know, don't expect yourself to finish the entire paper in a week or in 2 days. Be reasonable about it and be flexible, as I said, and change it. Review potential publishers and options. Now, I showed you my website with over 100 different journals that I go through every time we want to publish, and I look at different journals that are out there. So review, go to my website and just review what's possible. Number 1, work on at least 2 projects at a time. I can say that I do this. I can say I don't necessarily like doing this. I'm sometimes working on 3 or 4 or 5 and not back and forth with my co-authors, but I like working on things 1 at a time. But in reality, it often is 2, 3, or 4 things at a time. Okay, so Rebecca Schulman also wrote for Inside Higher Ed 3 years ago, and she wrote a series of articles, and one of the articles was titled, "The Hardest Part about Writing is Restarting." If you move to another location and you got to pack up your computer and unpack, you have to restart. If you gave up on a paper because it's rejected and you went to a different paper and then decide go back, that's hard. That's happened to me with my qualifying exam, my second one that was never published. I gave up, and I should not have given up. I didn't know how to restart. I didn't have time in my schedule to restart. And as I said in week 2 or 3, avoid the delete button. Don't hit delete if you can avoid that. Just save it. Call it save text, call it crappy text, call it junk text, whatever you want to call it, but it's text and it's your text. It can be Shannon's junkie text, whatever you want to call it. Ben's barf of text, the Ben Barf writing episode, and there, I'm sure Ben's going to create this folder now. And, so we have all these, things we worked on that we never are quite pleased with and never quite finished. But remember, Beethoven was constantly tinkering at the point, he was constantly tinkering with his music. You never thought he was done, but it's beautiful stuff. And some of the things you write are beautiful too. She says, ideas will not be pristine, will not be publishable on the first draft. We have to get over that perfectionism on the immediate perfect. We're not all Mozarts who could draft things and you just pace and think. We're more like Beethoven than we are like Mozart, or combiners. We might do some of both. In my research and my dissertation showed that. There are no shortcuts, as I said before, but if you work on limitations, if you work on future directions, that's enough. And that could be a paragraph or two. And you'd feel like you got something accomplished. Even the abstract, table of contents, the acknowledgements, all those are short. Why not go with those kinds of things? Or appendices, right? You have to put them in sometime. Why do we save it to the end? Why not put them in towards the beginning? And then we've got some things written, right? So even a small subsection of the manuscript takes time. You'll need multiple versions of almost everything you write, Rebecca says. Everything has to be polished a little bit. Polish. I'm kind of like the wordsmithing person on the team. I've edited 5 papers in the last 2 days. 4 for a special journal issue, 1 as a favor for a student of mine, maybe 6. We've sent in a paper back. So in the past few days, I've had 6 different papers we've been working on. And most are for the special journal issue, not that hard. But they all, every one of them, even if I've read it 4 times, it still will need some refinements. So she says, number 4, it takes intellectual and artistic stamina to come up with ideas that get in journals. And that's why I said, when Erin did her lit review for her comp exam, I knew there's some creativity in that. I knew that it was possible to publish. Everything you publish should have some hint of creativity, whether it's the method, whether it's a visual, the model, the framework, the name of the article, something creative in there to interest people. Number 5, don't let messy gibberish words taunt and haunt you. In fact, I told my advisee, Shishi, Friday, I said, Shishi, I need some help. She asked me to write, we're sending back a paper on Duolingo. So I've been working on 6 papers in the past few days. So we're sending this paper back on Duolingo. I said, Shishi, send me some gobbledygook. And she didn't know what I meant. Just send me some gibberish. She didn't know what I meant. So I just wanted her to take a stab. She was brain dead. I just wanted her to take a stab at something, anything about what the reviewers wanted us to include. Just and I'll shape it. I'll revise it. She was at a loss. So I just called gibber. It doesn't have to be any good at all. Just get some words down and I'll refine it. It can be a lot of gobbledygook. That's okay. She says, write for 25 minutes, 1 to 3 times a day for a week without deleting a single word, without deleting. And then bracket. She likes bracket. I haven't used brackets too much, but sometimes she brackets things that are in process, works in process, and writes a note to herself. Kim might write, be sure to include the references on here, or look this up in the literature, some note to self kinds of things. That will save you a lot of stress by adding insertions in the text or annotations about the text. Either insertions is what she uses. I put more annotations. Uncertain and unlike text make a different color. So I make things I think we should delete. I have red highlight or pink. Things that we might delete, I put yellow, or things we're going to revise. Things I don't want my colleagues to delete, I make green. So like a stop sign, green, red, green, yellow, red. This works tremendously. Or anytime you revise a paper and don't want to track changes, when you've gotten it so many times, the 8th time through, you don't want to track anymore. So I highlight in yellow the changes. That's much easier to revise the revising process with my colleagues and I. So color can make a difference. Number 9, after you break the habit of deleting, you can delete judiciously, she says. Okay, my world is open book. We cut half the book out. Many books of mine, we just go ahead and delete. Let's take that out of there. And number 10, trust your research. I think Aaron said this. If you read a lot, trust yourself. You're the expert after 10,000 hours in grad school reading stuff. Trust your research, trust your ideas. Avoid setting standards at too high a level. Now, I had a colleague that I went to grad school with who was hired at IU after I was hired. And she would set high standards for herself, because at Wisconsin, where we went to school, it was #1 ed psych program in the country always. And #1, 2, or 3 was Stanford and Illinois. Everyone set high standards, but she set them so high she could not meet them. And it wasn't until she started working with a grad student who had more savviness with publishing that all of a sudden they would try and get a 2nd-tier journal or 3rd-tier. They would, if you always set these real difficult goals, you'll see that that's not possible, and you'll start giving up and fall into a cycle of learned helplessness. And reward your writing. I like going to Chocolate Mousse with Kim and just hanging out and rewarding my writing, right? And Elizabeth Van Pate, who graduated a year ago, she sent me 2 cases of microbrew beer from around the country. After she graduated, her husband brought it to commencement, and then it rained so hard that I couldn't get them, so she mailed them. So I reward my writing. We have a beer, have an ice cream, have a pretzel, or whatever it is. Reward your writing, track your writing, have realistic expectations, Leslie Leonard said in Inside Higher Ed. Find ways to mark days that you've met your writing goals with a sticker. Give yourself a smiley face. Put up something in Facebook. Hey, I finished this paper after 2 months finally, and get some positive feedback from other people. Maybe take a picture of it. But mark the days in the calendar when you've met your goals. Writing should be enjoyable. Just writing, getting an idea should make you feel something pleasant. Just having that sentence that you never thought of before, that ending to the paper. I'm kind of focusing most of the end of a paper and summarizing what it means to the field. And when I do that, if I do a decent job, I kind of smile. Wow, this is something I never thought of. And if I hadn't, told my colleagues I want to write the ending, I never would have thought of those ideas. Reward yourself with a new cup of coffee, with a new cup of tea. I drink tea. I don't drink coffee anymore. New clothes, new hat, movie tickets. Spa. I'm going to Vegas for ACT. Go to the show tickets or something, and maybe have random drawings for meeting your goals. I don't know if I do a random drawing, but I do buy shoes. I buy ASICS shoes every time I can. Let your rough drafts be rough. This is a good point. That you get them down there and they're rough. Okay, I can go to bed and I'll come back to it tomorrow. Don't dwell on how bad it is. It's crappy stuff. Okay, I can improve it tomorrow. Just write. Just get it on paper. Thought on paper. If there's 3 words that are most important in all of this, it's thought on paper. That's a top model. If you get thought on paper, you're halfway home. It doesn't have to be a correct thought. It doesn't have to be the right thought. It doesn't have to be lots of thought, just getting thoughts on paper. Goofy fonts, nonsense words, rhymes, these all count towards writing goals, she says. I like this one a lot. Just gibberish, gobbledygook. Just put some rhyme. I often do poetry in the middle of writing. I'll write 4 lines of stanzas, whatever. It just gets your brain outside the box kind of thinking. Allow any writing to count towards your writing goals, anything, whatever it is. Number 9, make the experience enjoyable to yourself and others around you. But, so this week I'm wearing pink shirts every day and pink ties. Last week it was black ties and black and red ties, black shirts. The week before was purple shirts. Week before that was white. Next week will be blue or red. Yeah. So make it fun, waiting on a bus or a plane, make some kind of a game out of it and so forth. Write for a diverse audience, this article said. Pre-writing, ask yourself questions about the audience. What would they like to know about? Restate the audience and who it is. Talk about the audience with colleagues, and do you have it defined properly? Take a look at what's published in the field and what's not published. Scan those things and see what outlets, what journals people are publishing or citing their work in. And then look at popular music, magazines, articles in Wired magazine or something else that you might subscribe to. Have other people read your writing. So, when you're done, you're not really done. You have to have other people kind of give you some feedbacks about it, or have the computer read it to you in a tinny computer voice or a more elegant one, or you read it aloud. Print it out. I find that I get tons of errors when I print out the paper and read it a physical than if I just read the screen. If I have a really important recommendation letter or grant, I don't just rely on reading the screen. I read off the screen and edit, but I have to print that. You have to, and take a look, because you'll find 2 or 3 errors in a 10-page document. If you turn in a grant with 3 or 4 errors, you're not going to get the grant. They're not going to fund that. So you have to do the wordsmithing at the end. Simplify it. One of the papers I reviewed yesterday, a colleague of mine, I said, "This is great. You've really improved the paper, but you've improved it so much. People can't read it. There's so many great concepts and ideas packed on one after another. It's not simple enough. People can't do the syntactic complexity of every sentence over and over." And then just revise. Be Beethoven. Revise. Tinker at the point of utterance. Constantly tinker. Use a thesaurus. Use an online dictionary. Think about the types of jokes that just won't work, the metaphors, idioms, humor, and so forth. There's a website called Grad Hacker that has all sorts of articles with tips about writing and writing strategies that you might take a look at. It's free. I'm going to stop there and say, we got through part 1. I didn't know if we'd get to part 2, but that's long enough for tonight. That's 2 whole sections tonight. Yua, Kim, Megan, and Ben, and Ishat, thanks for staying tonight. That's 5 of you out of 8. I think we had one more here earlier. Who else? Who else is part of? We have 3 more people. Anyways, I did hear from Rachel, and she couldn't make it tonight, unfortunately. So, any comments? If not, I am going to say, I have just hit stop the recording.